Good afternoon. Today's Battle Rhythm, assisting veterans with general legal issues, will be hosted by Jeanette Gillis. Jeanette is the Deputy Director of Community Integration at America's Warrior Partnership. She's also the lead for America's Warrior Partnerships Network, which provides local veteran serving organizations with connections to national resources when a veteran's request cannot be met locally. To find out more about the network, visit americaswarriorpartnership.org/the network. That's it for me. Jeanette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Allison. I'd like to welcome you all to our August Battle Rhythm. I'd like to welcome all of our community affiliates, our 4-Star Alliance members, veteran serving organizations, and the guests that are joining us today. For our agenda, we have Antoinette Balta. She's going to be speaking with us on legal issues. After her presentation, we are going to have a question and answer session, break out into a collaborative session into breakout rooms, and then we will conclude our session at 3:15. Antoinette is the Executive Director and Co-founder of Veterans Legal Issues. Antoinette and her organization work with veterans in Southern California. None of the information that Antoinette's going to share with us today is meant to be legal advice, but mainly meant to help us identify when a veteran has a legal issue and what we need to do next to assist that veteran in getting connected to someone that can help them. So Antoinette, we are thrilled to have you today. This is an issue that we see in the network quite frequently with veterans that are coming to us with legal issues, and sometimes we don't know where to turn. So we're thrilled that you're going to share some expertise with us today. And so everyone, I'm going to turn this over to Antoinette so she can begin her presentation. Thank you.
Welcome everybody, and thank you for attending today's presentation on assisting veterans with general legal issues. A lot of you guys are here today because you oftentimes meet veterans that have legal issues and you don't know what to do with them. You don't know where to send them. And so we thought, you know what, let's address this on the national level. Let's talk about it so that you can collaborate and you can provide the best resources for the veterans that you're serving. So why am I here as Executive Director of Veterans Legal Institute? Because I actually provide free legal services for a living. Veterans Legal Institute is a nonprofit law firm. We're located in Southern California. We only practice in our area. And we provide free legal services to veterans that are low income, at risk, homeless, disabled, and mentally ill. The idea of our work is really to remove barriers to housing, healthcare, education, employment, and ultimately empower the veteran and his or her family into self-sufficiency. So why are these legal services important? Like, what's the difference? A lot of people on the national stage are talking about, employment and housing and healthcare and community colleges and education and higher learning and things of that nature. Why isn't legal on the map, and why is it important? In fact, I would argue that it's probably one of the most important issues that is unmet in our environment for our population. First of all, legal issues can be an unnecessary burden and create undue stress that may lead to bad outcomes. What does bad outcomes mean? It means losing your home. It could mean becoming one of the 22. It means not seeing your children. It means passing away without an estate plan. There's so many things. So these types of legal issues that go unaddressed oftentimes can lead to bad outcomes. When you have legal services and you have an advocate that's fighting for you, that removes barriers to your housing, your healthcare, your education, and your employment. So it paves the way for success in multiple areas of one's life. And finally, legal services and access to justice empower the veteran and the veteran's family into self-sufficiency. So it's really important to have access to these types of services, more importantly, pro bono or even low bono if possible. But to get there in the first place, the majority of the people on this call are not attorneys, are not trained in legal issues, didn't go to law school, are civilians or veterans, but that maybe have had an encounter with an attorney or with their JAG officer. But how do you find out if somebody even has legal issues? Oftentimes people will come into my office with an idea of what they want to talk about. And I ask open-ended questions, or I'll give them a particular questionnaire. And I'll talk to them a little bit and hear their story to figure out if they have a legal issue. And a lot of times they end up leaving here with assistance for an issue they didn't actually come in to get. So for example, someone might come into my office and say, I really need help finding a job. And I'll tell them, well, I'm a legal aid. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on? And they'll start saying, you know what, I'm homeless right now and I don't have an address to put on my job application. And I have a DUI from 8 years ago. So as they're speaking, I'm thinking, you know what, I got to help them expunge that criminal record, to remove that barrier to employment. I've got to connect them with a housing provider and see if they qualify for a voucher. And, you know, I don't get benefits because I'm a survivor of military sexual trauma. And it was my commanding officer who raped me. And I just stopped showing up to drill, and I got an other than honorable discharge after 14 years of great service. So then I'm thinking like, oh, this person needs a discharge upgrade. And then we've got to apply for their veteran benefits. So when you know what kind of questions to ask after actively listening, you're more likely to be able to better serve the client. And that's a lot to ask for someone who isn't used to client interviewing and counseling, but I wanted to just give you guys some basic tips and tricks to kind of figure out how to go about it. And once I do that, I'm also going to point you in the direction of different avenues for legal services if you don't have one in your county, or if you don't know about one in your county. Sample types of legal services I put out there. The number one is probably family law, both for veterans and civilians. You know, everybody needs family law services. They're very hard to find pro bono, but sometimes you can get assistance through different measures. Veteran benefits, complex benefit appeals, discharge upgrades, specifically for people that are survivors of military sexual trauma or are living with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury. You know, consumer law, a lot of people may need to file for bankruptcy, landlord, tenant, and housing issues. Believe it or not, immigration, a lot of our veterans, including combat veterans, are still not citizens that have been naturalized. They are still green card holders. And even estate planning for older adult and terminally ill veterans. And that's just to name a few. So let's move on to sample ways veterans can receive legal services. So a veteran comes to you and you don't work at a legal aid and you're not an attorney, and you identify, you know what, this veteran really needs to speak to an attorney. Where do I send her? And so you have a few options, and it really depends on the resources of where you live. So some places are resource heavy. For example, Los Angeles County has over 20 legal aids. And then some places, specifically more rural areas, are going to have to be more creative in how they service their veterans and their legal needs. So what you have typically are, first place are, look to see if you have a legal aid in your area. Typically, the name of your legal aid is going to be, you know, the county that you live in, legal aid, or just type in legal aid your county on Google and see if you have one, or different pro bono programs. A lot of you guys live in states where your state bar, which regulates the attorneys in your state, may have a list of the legal aids by county in your state. So that's another place to look. Sometimes you can find legal resource fairs or mobile legal clinics where you can send your client. Sometimes different people will, for example, legal aids will place your client on what's called a case list and farm that out to private law firms and say, hey, we're anonymously listing the cases we have available. Are any of you guys willing to take these types of cases? If it's a criminal law issue, oftentimes your client may qualify to have a free public defender. You can go to your local bar association. So in the county you live in, there may be a local county bar association. If you don't want to go all the way to the top to the state, and ask your local county bar association, hey, what are the options for people in need of free or low bono legal services, and get some answers from them. And for veterans that have criminal law issues that are actively engaged in the system, it's important to know if you have a veteran treatment court in your county. Now, what's a veteran treatment court? In a nutshell, a veteran treatment court is a way for a veteran to go through the process and, in lieu of incarceration, choose rehabilitation. So they're courts that understand veterans and they understand service, military service. And if they accept the veteran, then they work with that veteran over a period of time to dismiss the charges or eventually dismiss the conviction, depending on which veteran treatment court, and really work with the veteran to rehabilitate that person. Now, not every county has the luxury of having a veteran treatment court. There's still a rather novel idea, although they have been increasing in number throughout the nation. They are incredibly successful, and you have to qualify for it. Now, if somebody is seeing a public defender, it's important that the client let the public defender know, hey, do I qualify for veteran treatment court? Because a lot of public defenders don't know about these types of collaborative courts. And on top of that, a lot of them might say, hey, you know what? I might be able to get you off with only like 6 months probation. This veteran treatment court is going to take you a year. But you know what? That veteran treatment court actually works to rehabilitate the veteran. So a lot of times what people don't understand is that because they provide more holistic services, they bring in the VA, they bring in social workers, and they bring in a team to really lean into that veteran and help out. A lot of times that's just the better answer, the better solution for that veteran. So it's important that they know about that resource. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about civil legal aid versus public defense. Now, a lot of people, when you're an attorney, and I'm sure you guys also have experiences in your fields, when they know you're an attorney, they will reach out and they will ask you all kinds of questions because they want free legal advice. And in fact, I just got one earlier today from a friend who asked me, hey, I'm trying to buy out of my lease, but the landlord's going to let me do it, but I have to pay all this money. And now I find out the landlord's moving in. Do I really have to spend that money? And I get questions about family law and immigration and criminal law. The fact of the matter is that not one attorney, I mean, there are some jack of all trades, but typically people will specialize in certain areas. And you have to understand the main difference when you first look at the umbrella of the law overall is you've got civil types of law, and then you've got criminal. So criminal is anything you could potentially go to jail for, right? You've commit a crime. And then civil is all the other things. So most legal aids only provide civil legal services, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the main reason is because for people who need criminal law services, there is the public defender. And there are certain rules to the public defender, but most people that get caught up sideways in the system are entitled to a public defender. In terms of your civil legal aid, a lot of people say, you know, I called this legal aid in my county and they wouldn't help me. They're not doing good work. And I'll start asking them a few questions, and it will turn out that, you know, they've got a legal issue out of state, or they're very high income, or they have a criminal issue that legal aid doesn't serve. So you have to understand that different legal aids have different eligibility requirements. The majority of them have income requirements, and oftentimes that income requirement is for two reasons. One, it's tied to funding, typically from the state bar, where to accept that funding so you can pay your attorneys, you have to agree to only help people that are below a certain income ceiling. And that's to ensure that people that are low income are the ones that are accessing the services. And that's truly the main reason. But the other is, if we had no eligibility restrictions, then we would have thousands and thousands of people at our door. So for example, Veterans Legal Institute, where I work, we're a small legal aid. We're, you know, a little bit under 20 employees. We get over 2,500 inquiries a year, and we only service Southern California, and we do not supermarket what we do. So there's just a huge demand for the types of services that we're offering. And frankly speaking, if we can't help, oftentimes the veteran doesn't access justice. Okay, so how do you find these attorneys or pro bono programs? As I mentioned earlier, you can definitely look up your state bar or your local county bar association. Also, we've been finding that a lot of veteran clinics are popping up in law school. Veteran clinics at law schools, because they go by semester or they go by season, you could say, oftentimes don't take cases in bulk, but they do take specialty cases. So a lot of law school veteran programs are taking discharge upgrades and veteran benefits. And sometimes you can even get consumer law assistance or other things. So check out your local law schools and just Google it, Veteran Legal Service Clinic, and see if you can find anything in your area. You can definitely always reach out to law firms and say, hey, we've got this case. We think it's great. Would you be willing to take it pro bono? You can look to corporate counsel. You can look where people have medical legal partnerships. What that means is when a legal aid or legal service provider teams or partners up with a place that provides medical services. So for example, Veterans Legal Institute has a medical legal partnership with the VA hospital in Long Beach. And the Veteran Administration facilities, actually, a lot of them have started teaming up with legal aids like Veterans Legal Institute throughout the country. And they offer legal clinics or legal services on site at the VA hospital. And that makes it a one-stop place where veterans who are already getting medical attention can also get their legal services, their legal needs met. I've put here a link to the Veteran Administration website where they provide a list of all of the medical legal partnerships that they have. And you can easily search by your state. And you can also look sometimes if your veteran is staying at a shelter in a DV program, oftentimes they do have partnerships with legal aids that may be able to assist. Finally, stateside legal, which I've put the link at on the website or on this PowerPoint, also can give you some clues as to where there are local legal aids in your area. All right, so this is just a little sample of different national legal assistance resources. Now, just so you guys know, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of resources out there, but the ones that I've put up here, this is just, as I said, a sampling of a few. They typically take clients throughout the United States. So you may be able to get assistance for your client regardless of where you live. And I've listed them out. Some of them are through the ABA, which stands for the American Bar Association. And then if your client has immigration needs, there's an association for that. NVLSP, which is the National Veteran Legal Services Program, provides a lot of great assistance in complex veteran benefit appeals and discharge upgrades. There's a Veterans Consortium Pro Bono program, again, for the same. And, you know, there are, what's really cool about the ABA is they've got a federal free legal answers website where a veteran can actually submit a question about a legal issue and they can expect to get an answer from that. So I thought I'd put these up here for you. And, you know, AWP is welcome to share this PowerPoint if anybody is interested so that you can have these resources. So let's say you don't have an attorney, you're not getting an attorney, the client can't find anybody, there's no legal aids. What do you do? So there are a lot of self-help resources out there. Some of them are court-sponsored, where you can go into a court, they might have a self-help section where they provide assistance in filling out forms or instructions. I know the Superior Court in the County of Orange in California has a lot of like how-to packets online, which are really helpful. And the veteran only has to go through and follow those directions, fill out the forms that they ask. And then there are different clinics. So different legal aids might sponsor clinics at courthouses directly on site or in community sites where they'll be there for one day a month or one day a week, where you can send someone, they can go in and they can get assistance with filling out forms or general questions. So typically when a veteran or anybody for that matter has to go to court, the burning question on their mind is, what do I expect? What do I do? For people not used to going to court, not familiar with the process, that can be something that creates a lot of anxiety. So what they're going to want to do, what they're going to want to know is, hey, how long does this take? What is this hearing? What does this mean? What do I have to prove? What does the other side have to prove? And who's making the decision? Is there going to be a jury? Is this bench trial? Like, what goes on? And so it's good to have an advocate to answer those questions. But the basic tips for you guys, one thing you can always tell your client is that there is a specific courtroom etiquette. You know, it's important to listen to the judge. You refer to the judge as your honor. You answer truthfully. You be respectful. You remain calm. If the client doesn't have an attorney and needs one, you can always request a continuance, which is an extension. You can say, Your Honor, we're working on getting an attorney. May I have an extension or a continuance in this case? So that it buys me some time to find representation. And most courts, by the way, really prefer their litigants to have representation, because not only does it make it more fair, but it really expedites the entire proceeding when people know what to expect and they understand the procedure. Okay, so you're working with a veteran. I feel like a lot of you guys could teach me a thing or two, but let's just talk about tips for working with veterans and military members that are in need of support, specifically legal support, or even any type of support. The first thing you want to do is you want to build rapport. Why? Because it's not easy to share that you're having a domestic violence issue, or it's not easy to share information about your military sexual trauma, or about your mental health issues, or the fact that you're getting a divorce, or whatever the issue is. So you want to really be able to create a comfortable environment with the veteran or the client. Pay attention to your positioning, make sure there are boundaries there, be respectful. If you're going to take notes, especially now everybody wants to do it in the phone, let them know. Say, hey, I'm not texting, I just want to take notes. I personally prefer a notepad. And I always let them know, I said, do you mind if I take notes? I want to make sure I don't miss anything. And you always start off with, it's not just business. How are you doing today? What brings you in today? How can I help you? Let me listen to you. I hear you. I understand. And you let the veteran tell his or her story. And sometimes people struggle or they leave things out. And so you really want to kind of coach them through the process by asking open-ended questions. So I always like to say, okay, can you tell me more? Can you go into more detail? Do you feel comfortable going into more detail? And then what happened? And how do you feel about that now? How is it affecting you? And if the veteran needs to take some time, you have to respect that silence, because while you may be removed from the situation as an advocate, or really just someone trying to understand what's going on, this might be something that's very close to the veteran's heart, maybe something very triggering and important in their life. So you definitely want to give space for that silence to exist. Now, if you're dealing with a population that you suspect have mental health challenges, or are living with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury, it's important that you're tolerant and you don't get frustrated. You avoid interrupting them. And you can oftentimes tell when people are struggling for whatever reason it is to share their story with you. You can tell sometimes where they can't look you in the eye, or they just sit there and they're telling you something totally egregious and they look completely numb, or they get very irritated at you or agitated in telling the story. They get frustrated. They might raise their voice. It's important to really try to manage the situation and manage the conversation so that you're really able to interview and counsel them well. Okay, definitely want to ask factual, logical questions. Don't use big words. That's probably not an issue with a lot of you guys on the phone, but a lot of attorneys sometimes want to speak legalese, and I don't know, maybe it makes us feel smarter, but you really want to speak to someone in a way that they understand it so you can get the response that you need to move forward. As many of you guys know, not everybody always identifies as a veteran for many reasons. Sometimes people think, well, I didn't go to combat, so I'm not a veteran, or for whatever reason it is. I always like to just say, well, did you serve in the military? And oftentimes that will render you the correct response. And just be mindful that different people come with you with different barriers to access of services. So it could be substance or addiction issues. It could be mental health issues. It could be that they're scared because they have bad paper, which is a less than honorable discharge. And you really want to understand military service as it is today currently and what it was in the past, right? And finally, and especially if you're working with volunteers who help you counsel or interview your veteran clients, you need to understand, and I'm sure, again, most of you do, but it's imperative that we impart this on our good intentioned volunteers, that we should understand what the veteran stereotypes are, but not promote them within our own work. And we need to avoid assumptions and judgmental questions. And many of you on this call have served and have been, have personally experienced questions of these nature. Things like, well, did you kill anybody? How many people did you kill? Or what's your political opinion on the war? And do you think Vietnam was a waste of time? And things of that nature can really trigger people and really destroy the rapport that you're working so hard to build. So just try to be mindful that veterans come from different eras. They have different experiences. And for that reason, it's really important to not be judgmental or speculative, but ask questions and take the veteran for face value and let the veteran speak to his or her experiences. And that is all I have for now. I'm excited to get into the working groups with you and answer any of the questions you may have or brainstorm with you about how we can access legal services in your area. So I will pass it back to Jeanette.
All right. Well, thank you, Antoinette. That was great. I'm looking through the box. I don't see any specific questions. Lots of folks found the information to be helpful, and thank you for your presentation. So I'm going to give it just a few more seconds and see if anybody has a question. And if not, then we can go ahead and move into our breakout rooms. Allison, can you put something up on the screen that reminds people what the breakout topics are so that they can begin thinking about what selection they would like?
So topic number 1 is general legal gap discussion. That's with Antoinette Balta. Topic number 2 is best practices in rural areas, and that's going to be with Maggie Hum and Laura Ghost. And topic number 3 is actually building pro bono partnerships. That's with Stuart Williams and Scott Johnson from the Warrior Alliance. We're going to have about 30 minutes in our breakout rooms. We're so excited about having a little bit of extra time. And then we're going to come back together about 3, and we'll have a wrap up by hearing from one person from each group to give us a key takeaway. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open all rooms. If you have any problems, just let me know. Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome back. Hope everybody was able to get questions asked and to get some ideas and stuff to help serve veterans better in their community. I think everybody's back now. So let's begin by hearing a key takeaway from group 1. Group 1, that was the general legal discussion gap with Antoinette. Thank you for doing that for us, hosting that group.
Sorry, I believe she asked me to report back. Is that correct, Antoinette?
Yes, so Carol Turner is from Psych Armor. She's amazing, and she's going to give you a little summary of what we talked about.
We were actually able to answer 3 of the burning questions. The first one was a case that kind of astounded all of us with a VA claim from 1998 that the VA was just now trying to find and asking the veteran to provide the documentation. So as much as that astounded us, Antoinette gave some great advice on that. Number 1, she asked all of us to make sure that we are at all times documenting complete timelines and paying very close attention to VA deadlines, and then documenting every aspect of the case. Another outcome from that we all learned was that a group like VLI, or any group that you're going to go to with legal aid assistance, very much appreciates someone like Barbara, who brought the question to the group, as much work as they can do helping to pull documentation together and help the veteran provide a complete outline and documentation of correspondence and when such things occurred. Her advice on that case was that we would then move forward with pulling all the records that were available and then claiming every single thing that appeared in those records. So while that case must be incredibly challenging for Barbara, we got a lot of great information about where to go with that. Our second question was about JAGs and why they can't help with divorce cases. And Antoinette restrained herself from commenting on her own personal opinions, but gave the absolute definitive opinions about their caseload and how it needs to relate to just time and service. Your JAG doesn't follow you beyond time and service, as well as the issue of that is not an area of expertise for them, and gave advice to us on different places that they can go to get that expert help with regards to that. And my final question was about, I get a lot of questions as a spouse and from civilian family members, church members, other people I go to church with. I get questions on this topic. And I had asked Antoinette about me that I had, or about where I should send people. And I've been sending people to like WWP, because I know they've been doing that, but that's really only for disability ratings. She mentioned actually coming back to you all to ask for advice regionally, and I know there's a lot of collaboratives. She also noted to ask them to go to their local collaboratives. Here in San Diego, we have 211, we have SDMAC, Veterans Coalition in San Diego. So she suggested I turn to those from my local area, but that I would give that guidance to any veteran to try and find those local organizations. So that's kind of a quick, dirty summary roundup of great topics we covered.
Awesome, thank you. You guys did a great job. Okay, topic number 2, and thank you, Carol, for summing that up. Best practices in rural area, that was led by Maggie Hum and Laura Goss from Alaska Legal Service Corporation. Which are you guys gonna give us your share outs, or did you assign someone else?
We didn't. We weren't quite as efficient as the first group. I think we didn't assign someone. So I'll go and take it over with the caveat that I've told the group, like, I have a bad cold, and so I'm working from home and working through that. So forgive my, well, Laura and I talked about sort of a number of things that we do at Alaska Legal Services. You know, a lot, we sort of working in rural areas is sort of what we do for all of our clients. I mean, we have 12 offices. Most of them are only accessible by airplane. So Laura and I are both in the Anchorage office, the big city, but we both have a lot of involvement statewide in what goes on in our rural areas. So so a couple of things we took a deep dive into. I'm not sure they necessarily pertain to rural areas, but one was the importance of working with VSOs and really tapping into their expertise. You know, here in Alaska, there is a shortage of attorneys to help with veterans benefits issues, and, you know, folks that are certified to work in the VA. So working with VSOs and really maximizing that resource is a big one. We also talked about tapping into bar associations. Antoinette mentioned this in her presentation, but using bar association sections as a resource if you are looking for help with a project or help getting pro bono support. So that is at Alaska Legal Services, we started a service member section of the bar association, and that has really helped us to tap into lawyers both in urban and rural areas that might be to educate them about issues faced by veterans and service members, but also to get them on board to volunteer to help us, whether it's with individual clients or with a bigger clinic, like a wills clinic that we might try to do in a rural area. We also talked about having local community in rural areas, having local community buy-in to anything that we might want to do. So making sure that we have either connections with our locally tribally operated healthcare facilities where a lot of our veterans get care, or working with local tribal governments or other tribal nonprofits, which are our main community partners in rural Alaska. So did I leave anything out, group? Okay.
We will take that as a no then. So you did a great job, Maggie. And I know that was a wonderful group. And we appreciate your being an expert in leading that discussion in that group. And then for topic number 3, this is building pro bono partnerships. This was TWA. So I'm not sure if it's going to be Scott Johnson or Stuart's going to share out, or if they identified someone else. Let's see. Scott or Stuart?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So I don't know if anyone in the group wants to talk about a few data points, but I'll go ahead and share unless someone wants to step forward, like Joy. But no, I keep picking on her. Just for everyone's knowledge, we at the Warrior Alliance, we announced last summer that we were kicking off something called the Veteran Legal Service Network. And the Veteran Legal Service Network is a coalition of several organizations that already provide nonprofit pro bono legal services in the state, but primarily in Greater Atlanta. A person that used to be she was the first female president of the American Bar Association, Linda Klein, actually started up the Military and Veteran Center at the ABA, and she is now on our board as of last year. She introduced us to General Butch Tate, that stood up most of the treatment courts across the country. And we took this group and built out an actual program, got a grant from the ABA, and we're designing a directory that's going to connect into our Salesforce system and also hire a paralegal to do all of our warrior navigation here in our office. And that will provide somewhat of a triage up front of a legal services case, non-criminal. in multiple facets and cover the state geography-wise. And we are building this directory to capture all pro bono attorneys that want to support veterans across the state. At the end of September, we just moved in to the Battery, Atlanta, which is in partnership with the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Braves Foundation. We are in current planning this week to launch our first clinic with the Georgia State Bar, the University of Georgia Law Clinic, the AVLF in Atlanta, and the Emory Law Clinic for veterans. And we'll be hosting an event actually here at the Battery with hopefully 50 to 100 pro bono attorneys in preparation for Pro Bono Attorney Week in October, and invite veterans and their families from all over the state to come and meet actual face-to-face with attorneys, and also be bringing about some tele-legal services that the University of Georgia and the State Bar partnered on as well. So we're actually building a solution, both technology and people-oriented, that can bring together the search for veterans to where attorneys can't seem to find veterans to help in their jurisdiction and in the services they provide, but also provide the triage services for veterans who cannot find attorneys. And probably Antoinette knows this issue quite well from her perspective, but we're looking to get this fully implemented in 2022 and then make it available across the country.
Oh, wow. Cool. So but just so everybody knowledge, so right now you're working on building it out for Georgia. I think that's what you said, right?
Yes, correct. We're building out, the technology is a pretty quick established, and we're going to be piloting the program throughout 2022. As people know, software is one thing, but getting attorneys to use it is another. So we'll be training them and retraining them, and then incentivizing them, reporting back the outcomes. And the big thing, this is a huge referral database. So we'll be working with one of the law clinics to actually maintain and support it, and provide some kind of virtual training as well. And just kind of over time, test out the functionality before we start rolling it out across the region and all the states. So this isn't the kind of solution that can be rolled out just like any other software. It's going to take an incremental growth period over time, and maybe get the young lawyers in the Georgia State Bar to participate as well, to get the word out. So we got a great plan. And then, as Mike Tyson used to say, everyone has a strategy until you get punched in the nose. And we'll wait and see how it's adopted before we start claiming that it's working.
Yes, technology is a great tool, but it is a tool. It still requires you to use it. So, and we appreciate you sharing, Scott, and tell us all the terrific work you've got going on in Georgia and Atlanta specifically. And thank you guys for my breakout sessions. And thank you, Antoinette. I'm going to pass it over to Jeanette to close us out for today. Go ahead, Jeanette.
All right. Well, again, thank you all. First of all, to Antoinette for a wonderful presentation, and to all of our breakout leaders that led those discussions and shared insights from those discussions with the rest of us. We'd like to thank you all for collaborating and sharing today here at America's Warrior Partnership, where we empower our communities to empower veterans. Today, we hope that we've provided you with some powerful insights, best practices, new partnerships, and tools to do just that. We believe our communities are best equipped to provide the quality of life for our veterans, and our goal at America's Warrior Partnership is to provide community partners like yourselves with support in order to help you develop the quality service to the local veterans that they deserve. Our next battle rhythm will be on September 13th. Our focus at that time will be on a huge topic affecting all of us in the work that we do. It is combating veteran homelessness. So please be with us as we discuss that. We hope you can attend. Thank you for being here today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.